North American trade is undergoing a massive shift as American brands vanish from Canadian supermarket shelves. Products that once filled aisles, milk, meat, cereal, beverages, packaged foods, are now gone. 71% of Canadian consumers declaring a boycott of American goods is not just a statistic, it's an economic verdict. Billions of dollars in contracts have been cancelled. Production lines in the US shut down. Tens of thousands of workers have lost their jobs. Companies that once dominated Canada are watching their products disappear overnight. For Canada, this is more than a boycott. It's an affirmation of economic independence, proof that they can protect their markets and accept the cost to do so. For the United States, it is a wake-up call, an unprecedented blow to a food industry long dependent on Canada. Could this mark the beginning of a lasting collapse of American goods north of the border? The first shock, Canada's boycott, began as a wave that swept through supermarkets and retailers nationwide. Products from the US, cereals, milk, meat, sodas, were pulled off the shelves and replaced with Canadian alternatives. Some stores even displayed signs declaring, "Canada First." Consumers responded with unity. From Toronto to Vancouver, Quebec to Alberta, shoppers pledged to avoid American products entirely, switching to domestic brands or imports from Europe and South America. What started as a shopping choice quickly became a social movement, tied to national pride and economic protection. The impact was immediate. US corporations faced losing a market worth tens of billions of dollars annually. Canadian suppliers expanded production to fill the gaps, while American goods piled up in storage. Supply chains broke down. Ports, warehouses, and trucking routes saw sharp declines in activity. The message was clear: Canada was willing to rewrite the rules of trade. American brands collapsed with more than 70% of Canadians boycotting. US exports to Canada fell by over $4.5 billion in a single quarter. Giants like Coca-Cola, Kraft Heinz, Kellogg's, and Tyson Foods recorded double-digit declines. Grocery chains dropped them for Canadian and European products. Kraft Heinz saw ketchup contracts cancelled. Kellogg's cereals, once a breakfast staple, were replaced by Canadian brands. Tyson Foods lost major orders, leaving US meat stockpiled and supply chains paralyzed. Plants reduced operations, layoffs spread, and companies considered exiting Canada altogether. For decades, Canada was America's most stable export market. Now, within months, sales collapsed by up to 50%, a staggering reversal that exposed the vulnerability of US dependence on Canadian demand. The supermarket wars. What began with consumers grew into a retail revolution. Imports of US goods fell 32% as Canadian supermarkets embraced "Buy Local" campaigns. In major cities, stores dedicated entire sections to domestic brands, while social media fueled a nationwide push to reject American products. Communities organized campaigns teaching shoppers how to identify US brands and avoid them. This wasn't just about groceries, it became a symbol of solidarity, a way to stand together in defense of Canada's economy. Meanwhile, European and South American goods replaced American staples. French dairy, German cereals, Chilean wines, and South American fruits took over shelf space once dominated by US corporations. For Canadian retailers, it was both a logistical challenge and a business opportunity. The economic domino effect. The boycott didn't stop at supermarkets, it spread across the border economy. In Michigan, New York, and Ohio, food processing plants lost up to 30% of production. Farmers in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, long dependent on Canadian dairy imports, were forced to sell at record low prices. Bankruptcy spread across farms and factories. The beef and grain industries lost over 40% of Canadian contracts in just one quarter. Meanwhile, Ottawa doubled down, boosting agricultural subsidies to help Canadian farmers expand production. Canada's domestic food sector grew 8.5% in just 6 months, the fastest pace in 2 decades. For the US, the surplus once earned through Canadian exports turned into a painful deficit. For Canada, the boycott became an engine of growth. The political fallout. Economics quickly gave way to politics. American corporations pressured Washington to retaliate. Farmers demanded intervention, citing more than 125,000 lost jobs across the Midwest. But Ottawa held firm, declaring trade independence a permanent choice. A majority of Canadians, nearly 70%, supported the government's stance, even at the cost of rising tensions. What was once one of the closest bilateral partnerships in the world now risked unraveling. This was no longer just a trade dispute, it was a political crisis. A warning for American products. The disappearance of US goods from Canadian shelves has become a symbol of consumer power and national sovereignty. A boycott that started in supermarkets has grown into a historic shift, reshaping trade, shaking industries, and rewriting North America's balance of power. For the United States, it's a warning. If the trend continues, entire industries, not just companies, could collapse. Farmers, workers, and corporations alike now face a future where Canada is no longer a guaranteed market. This is more than a boycott. It is a wake-up call, one that may forever alter the North American economy. This is True Estate Report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.